This is my cinnamon cream cheese cookies, a sophisticated balance of warm, spicy sweet cinnamon and the tangy, rich, decadent cream cheese with a crisp edge and a soft, chewy center, making the perfect sweet treat for the winter season. First, we start by making the cream cheese filling. Into the mixing bowl of a stand mixer, add in your cream cheese, caster sugar, and vanilla paste. Fit the mixer with a paddle attachment and start mixing on a low speed just to incorporate all the ingredients. Once the ingredients come together, gently crank up the speed to high to give the cream cheese a good beating. All we're trying to achieve here is to smoothen the cream cheese by removing any lumps and gently dissolve the sugar into the cream cheese. The easiest way to do this is by using room temperature cream cheese. After a minute or two of mixing, scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl and continue to beat on high speed for another minute or so. Then we go in with the final ingredient, the whipping cream. The whipping cream will lighten the batter, making it less dense and make it a bit more malleable when it comes to spreading onto a baking tray. Start by mixing on a low speed, and once the whipping cream is incorporated, gently turn the mixer up to a high speed and beat the batter until it thickens. And you should have something that looks a little like this, almost like a cream cheese frosting. It's light and fluffy but thick until stiff peaks. Next, onto a baking tray lined with greaseproof paper. Dump the filling onto the baking tray and using a palette knife, spread the mix to the corners of the baking tray, creating a roughly flat and even layer. This doesn't have to be perfect by all means, but getting it as level as possible will ensure the same thickness in each piece when cut later on. Once the filling is spread, pop it into the freezer for 2 to 4 hours to freeze over. I typically do this the night before, so the next day I can just go straight into making the cookie dough. Once the filling is frozen over, we're going to cut this into pieces. You can cut these as big or small as you like, but I would recommend keeping it fairly large, because when we mix it into the cookie dough, these pieces will break down a little more as they distribute through the cookie dough. Then pop this back into the freezer to stay firm until we're ready to use again. Next, we make the cookie dough. We start by sifting our dry ingredients. Place a sieve over a mixing bowl and add flour, baking powder, bicarbonate of soda and salt, and lastly ground cinnamon. Gently tap the sieve against the palm of your hand until all the dry ingredients have passed through and the lumps have been removed. Place the bowl to the side while we make the next part of the cookie dough. Into a mixing bowl, add in room temperature Beurre Noisette, also known as brown butter, light brown sugar, caster sugar, and vanilla paste. Using an electric whisk, start beating the sugar and butter on a low speed until all the ingredients have started to come together. You can also do this on a stand mixer with a paddle attachment. As the ingredients come together, turn the mixer up to a medium to high speed and continue to beat the butter and sugar. After a minute or two of mixing, scrape the sides of the bowl and continue to mix on a medium-high speed until the butter and sugar is light, pale and fluffy. This will take somewhere around 5 minutes to achieve, as long as your butter is at room temperature. You don't have to use Beurre Noisette for this recipe. You can also use unsalted, room temperature butter, cut into 1 cm cubes. After 5 minutes or so of mixing, you should have something that looks a bit like this. Give the bowl a gentle scraping just to make sure there isn't any butter that hasn't been creamed properly. And then we go in with our eggs one at a time. Crack in the egg and start mixing until all the egg has fully incorporated. You can continue to do this on a stand mixer with the paddle attachment or with an electric whisk, but I decided to do this part by hand to demonstrate the emulsification process and the changes in the batter's structure. Once the first egg is fully incorporated, we repeat the process with the next egg. Now that all the egg has been completely emulsified, we go in with our dry ingredients. Add half of the dry ingredients and gently fold into the batter, making sure to scrape the sides and the base of the bowl as you mix. Once all the dry ingredients have incorporated, repeat the process with the second half, continuing to gently fold and scrape the sides of the bowl as you mix. Once the cookie dough is formed, go in with the frozen cheesecake chunks and fold into the cookie dough until evenly distributed. I recommend doing this part by hand to keep the pieces as large as possible. Doing this in a stand mixer with the paddle attachment will break the pieces down completely, and the heat that it generates will melt the cream cheese into the cookie dough. Now for the final step before baking. Onto a baking tray lined with greaseproof paper, portion out the cookie dough. I'm using an ice cream scoop to keep the pieces as even as possible. Each portion weighs around 90 grams. You can portion the cookie dough into smaller pieces to get more cookies if you like. You will just have to adjust the cooking times. Smaller cookies will cook a lot faster. Then place the cookie dough balls into the fridge for about 30 to 45 minutes. Normally you would chill the cookie dough for a lot longer, but since the inclusion was already frozen, it's going to chill the cookie dough down a lot faster. While we're waiting for that to chill, we'll make the sugar coating. Into a mixing bowl, whisk together caster sugar and ground cinnamon until all the cinnamon is evenly dispersed and the lumps of sugar have been removed. Once the cookie dough is chilled, individually coat them in the cinnamon sugar and place onto a baking tray lined with greaseproof paper, leaving enough space between them. My baking trays are 40 by 30 centimeters and I can fit 6 cookies on each tray. Bake the cookies in an oven at 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit for about 12 to 14 minutes. Leave to cool on the baking tray for about 10 minutes before transferring to a wire rack. Due to the cream cheese, once the cookies are fully chilled, store in the fridge in an airtight container. And there you have it, my cinnamon cheesecake cookies. I truly hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. As always, the full recipe and the links to all the equipment I've used are in the description box below. Until next time, happy baking!